Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, welcome to the Commander's Quarters Studio. I'm your host Mitch, and this is Eddie.
Hello there.
Glad to have you here. So, on today's episode, well, I should say first, if you haven't seen the Close Quarters episode 1, that is the Commander's Quarters gameplay episode in which Eddie is on, you should probably watch that first, as there's going to be a lot of spoilers. We're going to talk about some of the decks, most notably the winner of that game and their deck, which may or may not be sitting to the right of me right now. I guess on the camera. It's still right now. Whatever. Regardless, yeah, we're going to do an episode featuring Eddie's deck and kind of going through kind of how Arixmethes works, why you made some build decisions. Because, yeah, it's a very powerful deck, obviously, since it took down the first Close Quarters game. You didn't even let me win.
I didn't even
very
let
first
you win.
gameplay episode. You did not let me win.
I did not, but you stole my commander. You stole Arixmethes.
I did, and it was
a good deck,
it was
right?
lovely. Again, if you haven't seen this, spoiler, so please go watch that first, then come back to this. Okay,
We'll be waiting.
Yes, we'll be waiting right here. Cool. Okay, now you're back. All right, so why did you build the deck? Let's go through that first. What was the inspiration for the Arixmethes deck?
Sure. So our meta, probably a couple of years ago at this point, we decided to hold a little tournament. We had our own little point system. We had brackets, whole thing. And so we all built decks within a certain budget.
Yep.
And I really like Simic. I have a problem. And
you like ramping and drawing. Wow.
I do. Yeah, it's very original. But I really liked Arixmethes. And so I built that as my tournament entry. And it took the tournament. I really liked the way that it played, and I've just been upgrading it ever since.
So what particularly drew you to that commander for that kind of a deck?
Yeah. So I think there's plenty of busted, good Simic commanders out there. Take your pick, Kinnan, Tatyova, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Arixmethes is different because Arixmethes is one of the only lands, I think the only one as of right now, that is a land that you can cast.
Yep. And it's in your command zone too.
Yeah, and it's in the command zone. Yeah, so there's a few different things I like about that. Number one, lands are rarely interacted with in Commander.
Yep.
There's certainly ways to do it. Beast Within, Land Destruction, just name it.
Blatant Thievery, maybe?
Blatant Thievery would get the job done.
Again, watch the episode.
Anyway, so most of the time it's pretty safe, and it gets you 2 mana ahead on once you cast him. And so not only is it a safe way to ramp and something that you always have access to, but it lets you get up to like 7 mana on turn 4 very reliably.
Yeah, so if you ramp on turn 2 and then you cast Arixmethes turn 3, it's basically like an explosive vegetation that's always in your command zone, kind of, right?
Yeah, it's great in that way. And you'll see a lot of Arixmethes decks online that are based around Sea Monster Tribal.
I believe that's what my channel has on it. Sea Monster Tribal. I think that was a Patreon request for it to be Sea Monster Tribal. But
Sure.
I could be wrong.
And that's a totally viable way to build it.
It's a lot of fun.
Arixmethes is one of the biggest ones out there, 12/12 Kraken. That's just not the way that I built the deck. I just wanted to cast all these big, splashy Simic spells that I had in my collection.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's kind of get into that. What exactly does your deck do? What kind of sets your deck apart from maybe others that you've seen?
Yeah, so for my deck, and the first point I'm going to make is one that you've talked about on the channel several times, is you really need to be thoughtful about what type of ramp that you include in your deck. I did a little count in my list, and I think I have about 18 to 20 variations on ramp that are all CMC 2 or less.
Okay.
And that number
is... no Cultivate.
No Cultivate.
Oh, so Cultivate is garbage. Okay,
Cultivate is garbage in Arixmethes. You heard it here first. I don't even want Kodama's Reach. There's no Uro in here.
There you go.
None of that. We all want CMC 2 or less. And that's because if you do that, you can get a turn 3 Arixmethes. And if you're hitting all your land drops, like that alone will get you 7 CMC to play around with on turn 4.
I think the only exception is Search for Tomorrow, which I believe you cast in the episode. That does technically cost 3, but you're just spending for 1.
Right, yeah. Okay, for most purposes, you're going to be paying 1.
Ramp that you can get out, or that you can ramp by turn 2. You ramp on turn 2, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So by turn 3, you can cast Arixmethes. Is the goal.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm not ignoring the fact that Arixmethes can turn into a 12/12 Kraken. That's great. There's really fun effects like Prime Speaker Zegana, who will draw equal to the greatest power among creatures.
Yeah.
Which can really get you going along with Rishkar's expertise. So there's ways to really lean into that.
Yes, I believe you got Prime Speaker out in the game, I believe, and so it 1/1 plus all the counters. So you drew like 13 for like 6 mana or whatever it was.
Exactly. It's a pretty good rate.
That'll set you ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that makes the deck a little special. I've got some pretty nifty inclusions in the deck. I got a few here right in front of me. So, as I said, Arixmethes is a 12/12. This is a card that I don't see showing up in many lists.
Can't see that. Yeah.
I know, it's a secret.
I'll put it on the screen.
It is a card called Scar Goliath.
Yep.
And it is a fairly old card at this point.
Return to Ravnica, I believe, or something like that.
Gatecrash. Yeah, so it's a 9/9 trample for 8, but that's not really relevant. It has the ability for Blood Rush. Blood Rush is the effect where you can pay an amount of mana, 7 in this case, and then discard it and kind of use it as a combat trick. And it says target attacking creature gets +9/+9 and gains trample until the end of the turn. 9 + 12 is 21.
Yep, and why is that number relevant in Commander?
Unless they've changed it by now, commander damage is still a thing.
Please don't change the rules, Commander.
So a lot of people will be like, okay, in their head, if I attack them with an Arixmethes, they'll be like, 12, that's not great, but I can take it. And then if they declare no blocks, or let's say I have a way to make Arixmethes unblockable, then I can be like, gotcha, here's a +9/+9. And the way that Blood Rush works is it's not even really a spell. It's an activated ability. So like traditional counter spells don't work against it.
Yeah, it's also pretty flexible, because if you actually, I can't remember if I think you got Scar Goliath out in the actual game too. Like it's still a 9/9 with trample, so regardless. So I mean, like it's got that flexibility, which is nice as well. Okay, so outside of your big Scar Goliath 9/9, what's another kind of notable inclusion that you might have in your deck that maybe other decks might not have?
Yeah, and this one is definitely just kind of a personal choice. It's still a good inclusion that you might want to consider if you're building Arixmethes. But we live in the north of the country where it's covered in snow 9 months out of the year. And so I run snow basics. So I got snow forests, snow islands. And mostly they're in here other than for flavor because of a card called Into the North. Into the North is functionally rampant growth, except it can fetch snowlands. And so most of the time, I'm just going to get a snow-covered island or snow-covered forest. I believe, I don't have this in the deck, but you can go get, what's the big 2020 flyer? Dark Depths.
Merit Lage?
Yeah, you can get Dark Depths because it's a snowland. So if that's up your alley, feel free to add that in there, and you can use Into the North to go get that.
I was going to say, another kind of adding in, you said we have 18 to 20 or whatever it is, kind of like ramp spells. The more that you have, the more consistent you can get Arixmethes out, which is just huge for the deck. So
yeah, and some people probably think that's a little bit of overkill. And in my experience from playing the deck dozens of times, it's really not.
Well, you're in Simic. You can just use the mana that you're getting to draw a ton of things and then cast the more things, and
Exactly. So another interesting way that I've built the deck is that I have 17 different spells that have X in their mana cost.
Oh, sheesh.
And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is since I have generally access to such huge amounts of mana, it really lets me use it in the most efficient way possible.
Sure.
And there's a card, I don't think I have it oh wait, I do. Here we go.
There you go.
Unbound Flourishing from Modern Horizons. It says whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana cost that contains X, double the value of X. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if that spell's mana cost or ability's activation cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy.
So basically, you're kind of like doubling up any X spell or ability or whatnot that you actually do with that. You're doubling the use of your mana.
Yeah, and a lot of the X spells, a good portion of them are draw spells. So even though I have a huge amount of ramp, and then you might think you just play out your hand and then you are done playing Magic, a lot of times I can turn that 10 mana into 7 new cards, and then we're just ready to go again.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Any other notable inclusions before we get to the exclusions?
Yeah, so there's one last inclusion that is a good card. It's a little bit pricier, so definitely budget considerations could be applied here.
So you're not allowed to use it on this channel. You're not allowed to say that on this channel.
If you tried to include this in the deck tech,
I will not include this in the... Yeah, you're not going to see the... No,
and that's Burgeoning. It's just a 1 mana enchantment. This one made its way into the gameplay episode. You can see how much work this card does.
Yep.
It just says whenever an opponent plays a land, you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield.
Yep.
Since this deck does tend to have, a full grip of cards at any given time, you can, for 1 green mana, ramp by 3 every round.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the game, because Burgeoning was in play, I believe you had more lands by far than the amount of cards in your deck.
It was definitely getting close.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, next up, let's talk about some of the exclusions. What cards are you not including in your deck?
Sure. I think the first 2 people will notice are Pemenzora and Freed from the Real.
Yep.
These 2 cards kind of got highlighted again recently at the Commander 20 release. There was a new commander called Zaxara.
Yep.
Who's green, blue, black Hydra. A lot like Arixmethes, it taps for 2 mana, but it's not a land.
Yeah. 2 mana of any 2 colors, or any one color?
Yeah.
Something like that regardless.
Yeah. And so both Arixmethes and Zaxara can be enchanted by Freed from the Real or Pemenzora and make infinite mana. In Arixmethes' case, it makes infinite green mana most of the time because it requires blue in the activation cost. So you just keep using the blue that Arixmethes makes, and you end up with this extra green.
Yep.
And then since I run a ton of X spells, you could then do whatever you want.
Yeah, and with Pemenzora, I believe you can just one-shot kill someone as well with it because you can plus to 21.
Exactly.
I think it's like a 21-1 at that point.
Yeah,
it's
it's super exciting.
Like that,
and you can give it flying. Yeah,
give it
so
flying and Shroud and whatnot,
yeah. Between the 2, Pemenzora is probably the better of the 2, but I think it's also the pricier of the 2.
Yep.
I don't have these in the deck just because I used to.
Yeah.
But I've kind of been there, done that. After a while, making infinite mana gets a little bit boring and repetitive, and it just led to the same way for the game to play out.
Making adjustments after you play it a couple times, making adjustments to your play group and that kind of stuff too.
Yep.
And if that would have happened, on the gameplay episode, turn 4, infinite mana, I win kind of thing, might not have been as interesting as how it turned out. So
yeah. And for Arixmethes, you kind of have to jump through a couple hoops anyway, since you need to get the slumber counters off of Arixmethes. I don't think we said what Arixmethes was.
I don't think we did either, but I mean, it probably happened on screen at one point, but let's just kind of talk about it. Why don't you read the card just for the cards?
Arixmethes, the Slumbering Isle, is 2 green-blue for a legendary Kraken, 12/12. Arixmethes, Slumbering Isle, enters the battlefield tapped and with 5 slumber counters on it. As long as Arixmethes has a slumber counter on it, it's a land. It's not a creature. When you cast a spell, you can remove a slumber counter from Arixmethes, and last but not least, it can tap to add green-blue. And so one thing I want to note about Arixmethes here that whenever I'm playing the deck that I play around is that when you cast a spell, it says you may remove a slumber counter.
Which is actually really crucial to Arixmethes.
It is. A lot of times I prefer to keep Arixmethes as a land, and I just choose not to remove that last slumber counter.
So you essentially get down to 1, and then you just keep it there so you can remove it at any point that you cast a spell that you want to, but you're not forced to, and you also don't have to kind of you wouldn't, just keep it at 5 and just no, I'm good for 5. You might at some point want it to get to a 12/12.
For sure.
Getting it to 1.
Yeah, it just dodges so many more board wipes. It can't be targeted by tons of creature removals. So oftentimes you just want to leave Arixmethes as a land in my deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a commander that ramps and basically protects itself and can also be a game-winning threat too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Next section we've got here is budget considerations. So what about that for this deck?
So for the budget considerations, I wanted to mention that for close quarters, Mitch really wanted to show that his budget decks can go toe-to-toe with commander decks you'll see in the wild, like Arixmethes.
And now I'm regretting it because I lost. So
you almost won. That worst fears would have been backbreaking.
It would have been fun. And again, completely out of context. If people haven't seen this episode, they're like, "What happened?"
So Arixmethes is obviously not what most people would call a budget deck. I think as of the recording of Close Quarters, it was probably about $560 in total, which is not a small amount. And a lot of that,
I've played against decks that are more expensive. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you just play a couple duels and you're there.
Yeah.
I did that because I was pulling some cards from some of my more tuned decks just to really give Arixmethes time to shine on camera.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways that we can bring that number down quite a bit and pretty easily without impacting the deck too much. So the first few cuts are in the mana base. we're only in 2 colors.
Yep.
We're only looking for green and blue. So lands that enter untapped or the fetches, things like that, while they're nice, the deck will run generally just fine without them.
Oh, yeah.
So Misty Rainforest will save you $82. Ancient Tomb is kind of interesting because if you get a green and blue source, it does let you get a turn 2 or even at least a turn 3 Arixmethes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But you can, so it's a ramp in the mana base, but definitely not needed since we have an abundance of other ramp options.
Although, yeah, having 7 mana on turn 3 is pretty nice.
It's pretty nice. Breeding Pool, that's $25 saved. Prismatic Vista, there's 30. And then my personal touch of the Snowlands and Into the North. The Snowlands are definitely more than basics.
Yeah, I have been asked before, like, you always talk about, turn 2 ramp and its importance. What about Into the North? And I'm like, yes, Into the North is extremely budget, but the Snowlands, adding that all into your deck does not really, that's...
It's not necessary. And I mean, I don't need to have every basic in my deck as a Snowland. That's a personal choice because I like to have all the basics look the same. But if you just had 1 Snow Island, 1 Snow Forest, Into the North can still generally work for you.
Unless it's in play or in your hand already, then you're like, this is a useless card. So.
Exactly. So maybe a couple of each. But
okay, what else?
So for outside of the mana base, Burgeoning, which we talked about, it's a great card, but it's certainly not needed. It could be even argued that it's kind of a win more card, but since it could be, since I have so many X spells. I think it won that game, but yeah. But since you have so many X spells, it is nice, but you can certainly get oodles of mana without it. Consecrated Sphinx isn't even in the deck normally. That's a Rashmi card. That'll save you 30. Cyclonic Rift isn't even normally in the deck. Heresy. I know. It's just, it's kind of the freed from the real penance thing. Like, I've been there and done that.
It's in 68% of decks. You should be using it.
Yeah. I mean, if you have one, run it. Totally do it, but it's not needed.
That's $38 right now?
I think so. I mean, it was I want to say it was like in the mystery booster, maybe?
I don't think it was. No? I don't know.
It's too expensive. Reprint it more, please. This one's a little bit, if you can keep it in, I probably would.
I mean, I believe it's how you won.
It is how I won. So Finale of Devastation and Pathbreaker Ibex. Finale can tutor any creature out of your library or graveyard.
Which is huge.
And early on in the game, I noticed, I had put the Pathbreaker Ibex into my graveyard. Which is a big reason why I didn't ever exile all the graveyards.
Yes, with the desert.
And so Finale can really tutor up whatever you need at the time. You can pay enough into the X that you can find whatever you need. It's generally Pathbreaker Ibex is going to be what you're looking for because it gives it haste, trample. It
makes everything
at
doubly
least
bigger.
As good as a Craterhoof in that scenario. But there's definitely other ways to win in Simic. And Hydroid Krasis, it's just kind of a player in standard formats right now. So because of that, it's a little bit pricier. Since I went pretty all in on the Expel Tribal, I wanted to have it in here, but could certainly function without it. Yeah,
absolutely. And then what about kind of adds? What would you kind of add in, I guess, if you're taking all these cards out? I think that's one of my most asked questions on some of my early deck techs. Like you put in what the upgrade, what the upgrades would be or what you're going to take out, but like, what cards go in or out for that? You need, a balance of things.
Yeah. So for taking out all of those expensive lands, honestly, basics are just fine. I think people should be running more basics than they do a lot of times.
Especially in a 2-color deck. Like you're going to be able to get your colors, and if you've got more, forests and islands in the deck, and you've got, most of your ramp sources are green, then you're going to be able to ramp and get your island.
Yep. It'll run just fine. I don't normally have the Rainforest or the Prismatic Vista in the deck, and it works normally just fine. Some interesting additions. One that is kind of like the Scar Goliath. I just never see it anywhere else, but it's worked really well for me, especially if you are a fan of turning Arixmethes into a creature. That is Curator's Ward. It's just an uncommon from Dominaria. It costs 3 mana, 2 and a blue. It's an aura. It says Enchanted permanent has hexproof. When enchanted permanent leaves the battlefield, if it was historic, draw 2 cards. So Curator's Ward is really nice because it doesn't say enchant creature.
Which very few things actually say, I believe, just like enchant permanent. Usually it's enchant land, enchant creature, but you rarely enchant anything.
Right, and so that's important because if Arixmethes is still a land, which again, most of the time he is, you can still enchant Arixmethes, the land, with Curator's Ward. It'll gain hexproof, that's nice and all. But then if you want to turn into Arixmethes into a creature, the Curator's Ward will already be there. It'll be sticking around. And if for some reason Arixmethes does get removed, you get to draw 2 cards because it's legendary.
It's really good kind of protection as well as kind of like insurance.
So really, really good card. I've liked it a lot. Some other ones, Nerox Stealth Suit.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's a nice artifact. I think it should be in way more blue decks.
Oh yeah. Especially since you can equip it at instant speed.
Instant speed
you can just
is
move it. Yeah,
super
okay.
nice.
Yeah, instant speed shroud. That's pretty nice.
People forget about that all of the time. You can have it just sitting on the battlefield, knowing you could have equipped it on your turn, but instead, you can just wait to equip it to whether it's your Consecrated Sphinx or Arixmethes or whatever at instant speed, and your opponent will be down a card. So,
absolutely.
If you're taking out Pathbreaker Ibex, another good win condition in the deck can be Archetype of Imagination.
Yep.
It's still tutorable by a lot of things, or you can just draw it with your X draw spells. But it really gives your entire board unblockable.
Unless your opponents are big into Reach Tribal, then
yes,
that's about the only thing that can basically
good
stop
point.
you. Yeah.
Good point. But yeah, Archetype gives all your creatures flying, and it says all of your opponent's creatures lose flying and can't gain flying.
So essentially, unblockability.
Unblockable. So really easy way to get in there with commander damage.
Yep.
Some other options are just cheap control options. You're in blue, so if you are a fan of having a little bit more interaction, Negate is great to run. Aether Gale is wonderful.
It's one of my favorites.
If you're taking out Cyclonic Rift, Aether Gale's a great substitute.
Yep, 6 permanents for 5 mana.
Yep. Whelming Wave is great. It returns everything but like Krakens, Octopuses, Serpents.
Your commander just happens to be.
A Kraken,
nice.
so that'll leave the board free and clear for Arixmethes. And these are a couple new additions that weren't actually out when we played the game, but I've since added
don't date the episode. No.
Sorry.
Can't tell people when we recorded. Yeah, no.
Super secret. But I'm testing these out. One of them is just kind of a cheeky little inclusion.
I love that one.
Nesting Grounds was in Ikoria, which had a lot of counter synergies in that set. And Nesting Grounds taps for colorless. Again, we can kind of get away with a few more utility lands since we're just in Simic.
Yep.
And it says, pay 1, tap it to move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery.
So you're making something else sleepy.
Yeah, you just put you move a slumber counter from Arixmethes onto whatever else you want. Doesn't matter.
You don't have to cast a spell at that point. Then you're basically just paying, well, I guess technically 2 mana because you are tapping that land as well. So you're paying like 2 mana, make Arixmethes into a creature whenever you want, basically.
At sorcery speed, which it's
a
bummer.
Sorry,
it's a bummer.
Yes.
But like if you want to hold a spell in your hand back for another time and you just don't have anything else to do, you can be like, I get rid of it.
Well, it's a utility land slot, so it's not really taking up a slot in your deck, but yeah,
and it's just funny.
That's pretty funny. I like it. It's cheeky.
The other one is also in C20. Excuse me, the Nesting Grounds was in C20. It was not in Ikoria. And that is Tidal Barracuda.
Yep.
This little guy is 3 and a blue for a creature fish 3/4. It says any player may cast spells as though they had flash, and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn.
Gotcha. So basically, everyone plays on everyone's turn, but you can only play on yours.
Yes, and the reason I'm testing this one out is, number one, it's just kind of a fun card. I wouldn't say it's a competitive inclusion necessarily. It can be very good, but it really changes the dynamic of the table, and I love cards that just kind of flip the game on their head.
But definitely does it in one card.
In one card. And the second sentence where your opponents can't cast spells on your turn. My deck, at least the way I've got it built, doesn't run a whole lot of counter magic as much as blue decks tend to. And so gaining that protection clause where you're safe to do your shenanigans on your turn can really lead to some splashy plays.
Kind of like a Grand Abolisher-ish style.
For sure.
Kind of a
card. And you can kind of double down on it too, because you can play it and knowing Arixmethes, you'll still have plenty of mana, so the turn before it comes back to you, you can basically finish your turn and play out whatever you want, and then on your turn you're free to do whatever you want again, and can really kind of get 2 turns in a row almost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Seems powerful. I like it.
It's good. So there's tons of other inclusions. If you have any big splashy Simic cards, this is the deck for it. It can basically afford to run anything you want, all the way up to Expropriate, the Eldrazi,
any kind of big extra turn spells if you're into that or whatnot. Enter the Infinite if you just want to have fun.
Love that card.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed playing against the deck, except for the losing part. It's definitely a very powerful and kind of unique Arixmethes deck that I really haven't seen before. It definitely performed and really showed kind of what the power of Arixmethes, what power of a land in your command zone can have.
Yeah, it's a blast to play. I hope some of you enjoyed the episode and might try the deck out for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, thank you for joining me, Eddie. Thank you for playing in close quarters and beating us all to a pulp.
You're very welcome.
And as always, thanks again and have a good one.